Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Josh. Welcome back. Today we will be reading Chapter 4 of Beyond the Brink, the eNovella about Stormgate by Jack Bentelle. Let's get started, shall we? Chapter 4. Ever since they unearthed the alien chestplate, the Whisperer had gone quiet. The truth was, Cullen missed the voice. It no longer disturbed him. The Whisperer was his link to Marilyn and the possibility for her cure. Nothing else mattered now, so he shot questions into the dark of his mind, waiting for answers in response. Have I done something wrong? Are we moving off track? He tried not to let desperation infect those questions, but he knew he was an open book to the Whisperer either way. He spent hours down in the dig, now fully fenced off since they realized the enormity of their discovery. Cullen examined the armor from every angle. It was the closest thing that Sigma-6 had to a fully intact piece, except for the blackened blast scar that marred it, where the heart might be found. So you're humanoid, Cullen mused. Some of you, at least. The Whisperer still remained silent. Cullen suspected it had something to do with their latest study conducted by Lilla. The material itself was not fully inorganic, despite its metallic appearance. There are organic signatures here, Lilla told him as they leaned over her latest scan. Less like this artifact was constructed, and more that it was grown. That made it unique amongst all of the artifacts they had so far uncovered. It was stable, in the quantum sense, and lacked the aesthetic appearance of the Salish object and the fragments from Canada and Mexico. Like it belonged to another species entirely, Cullen probed, hoping for clarity from the Whisperer. Clarity that never arrived. The intricacies of the chestplate made it seem as ancient and beautiful as the birth of the cosmos. To Cullen's eye, there was no doubt that these markings constituted some sort of language. They were not the same as the glyphs on the other artifacts, or even the walls of the temple that once contained the chestplate. What the markings most called to mind were the esoteric scrolls of alchemy. Cullen, of course, gave no credence to such lines of outdated thought, but was familiar with them as many physicists of the past had been obsessed with that false science, a mixture of precise composition and fantastic illustration. These markings almost appear like some kind of spell. Even the biggest doubters amongst Sigma-6 could no longer deny it. They now possessed the biggest secret in human history. Based on the initial negotiations that created Sigma-6, this information did not filter out widely. Essentially, the only people who knew that the project even existed were Cullen, Preston Swift, the top brass at Central, and his 50-some field scientific and security team members. In a way, over the past 7 months as they carefully excavated this chestplate, Sigma-6 had become a makeshift family. Except Cullen didn't trust a single one of them, not even Dr. Edgar Fletcher. Ah, Dr. Cullen, I didn't expect to find you down here. A lanky and hyperactive Fletcher scrambled down the metal staircase into the pit of the dig site. Dreaming of its secrets like me? It wasn't that Fletcher seemed like some sort of scoundrel. He would certainly take the secrets of Sigma-6 to the grave. However, he was too interested. That was what worried Cullen. Fletcher was just as restless to uncover the truth as Cullen was, but Cullen knew that the full truth of these discoveries were not something humanity would understand. I do my best thinking at night. Fletcher rubbed his chin as if Cullen had uttered some deep insight. Cullen turned away to hide his irritation. I've been doing some thinking as well. Of course you have. It seems obvious that there is a stark difference between this piece and the Salish object, let alone the fragments from our previous digs. It makes me wonder about the story of these beings. It seems like it was a violent one. In fact, I begin to consider that it was not just one alien species that came to our ancient world, but 2. Cullen felt his irritation curdle to anger, with an intensity that surprised him, like the anger arose from someone else within. Speculation, Dr. Fletcher. I believe speculation is the death of science. Surely not. He seemed offended at the proposition. Is it not the imagination that leads us onward? Imagination? No. I prefer to let my ideas come to me out of hard data. Cullen brushed past the frazzled archaeologist as he climbed back up to the camp. Perhaps some patience is needed. He left Dr. Fletcher with his dangerous thoughts and went to bed. Sleep eluded him, as it had for many months now. Only Julian and Lilla seemed to truly notice the growing darkness beneath Cullen's eyes. They attributed it to stress. They weren't wrong. They just misdiagnosed the source. After tossing and turning for what felt like hours, Cullen finally felt his unconscious take hold. He drifted off. It was not mere violence. The fury of the Whisperer's tenor jolted Cullen back to the sounds of the Amazon night. It was glory. It was conquest. It was our destiny, taken from us. The images of the chestplate swirled in Cullen's mind, intrusive thoughts that would not abate. He saw flashes of fire, smoke, and the sound of 2 heartbeats in sync. You recognize it, don't you? Cullen posited. The armor? The Whisperer did not respond. Cullen thought it had retreated once again, but then, finally, it spoke. It's something I could never forget. Cullen did not need any more context. He felt it in the words themselves. Regret, heartbreak, hope, eternal, and love. It seemed even the Whisperer knew the tortures of love. The Allied states of the Southern Hemisphere wanted them gone. Negotiations between their council and Sigma had broken down, and the dig site was caught in the crossfire. Cullen made sure that the remnants of the temple were packed away and shipped to Swift. As for the piece of armor, he and the Whisperer decided that they would arrange for its storage in a more secretive location, a far-flung Sigma site where prying eyes wouldn't wander. They had 3 days to pack up and go, but where? The Whisperer held no more clues for Cullen to follow. It seemed even their knowledge had its limits. I chose you not as my puppet, Cullen. I chose you for your mind, so use it. It was so simple. He couldn't believe he hadn't thought of it before, but sometimes the best breakthroughs happen just like that. It took some doing, but Cullen managed to convince Preston to ship the sailor's object to the Amazon, still flickering within its quantum containment unit. Lilla and Fletcher helped him prepare the experiment, though he refused to explain himself fully until he was ready. He chased his thread of intuition like a white rabbit, sustained only by a deep faith in his conception of the world. When the time came, the 2 other scientists helped Cullen to lower the sailish object's containment unit into a tank of water. An array of phonon sensors were directed at the tank and hooked into their most powerful processor in the camp. Lilla caught on first. Vibrations, waves and particles, quantum noise. Now Fletcher got the idea. We may be able to match the infrasound of the sailish object with any other object in resonance with it across the globe. But we can't pierce too deeply into the quantum world. With the right tools and minds, we can listen to it. Cullen turned on the processor. Lilla watched their digital map of the world as the system calibrated to the subaural sounds issuing from the sailish object. While Cullen and his team couldn't hear it, they saw the waves that emanated through the water in the tank. Now bring it up, Cullen motioned to Lilla. Slowly. By turning a knob, Lilla turned into and amplified the frequency in their makeshift lab. They felt it before they heard anything, a rattling through their bones. The low sonics of the infrasound were manipulated and deciphered through the processor until it reached the aural range. At first, the tones reminded Cullen of whale song. Preston would like that. But with each turn of the dial, the sound became more crystalline and pure, like the voice of some distant angel. It's striking, Fletcher said. The undercurrent of the universe, singing for us. Let's see if our bard sings alone, Cullen nodded to Lilla. Link into the Sigma-wide network. Cover as much area as possible. Nothing yet. Cullen pushed Lilla away from the controls and did it himself, widening their search to the furthest possible limits. "We have no time to waste, Lilla. This is a sensitive process. We have to be cautious." Lilla's words cut off. A blinking light appeared on the digital map. Then another, and another. Resonating frequencies, matching signals. Artifacts in quantum flux all across the planet. Joined together, these hidden sounds coalesced into an angelic choir. "My God," Fletcher whispered. Cullen could only grin. "Didn't take you for a religious man, Dr. Fletcher. I don't know about God, but it certainly seems as if we tuned into his choir. Every artifact with the same origin as this Salish object are and have always been linked in subaural harmony, and now we know exactly where they are." "But Clive," Lilla tentatively spoke up, "where is any of this really leading us? Look at these frequencies. We could be looking at small fragments, incomplete pieces, more of this wild goose chase." As if in answer to her words, the volume of the sound increased tenfold. More matching signals appeared, all gathered together. A large field of infrasound was issuing out from one distinct location. Cullen leaned in close and felt the whisperer's attention sharpen along with his own. "I hope the two of you enjoy the cold. It seems we're headed north." A week later, their transport ships touched down. Cullen stepped out into the Arctic freeze. He puffed into his gloved hands, but the polar winds sucked it away before any warmth could reach him. "What do you think?" Cullen asked. The whisper purred, tickling his neurons. "This land was largely overlooked during our campaigns upon this wretched planet. If it was anywhere, it would be here." "But what is it? Can't you tell me? This would be much easier if you didn't keep secrets from me." "You will know when it is time to know." It was no use. No matter what the whisperer claimed, Cullen could not shake the feeling that he was just a tool after all. It took an entire year to prepare the Arctic dig. Sigma 4 drills were shipped north at great expense, to the point that Central threatened to shut down Cullen's wild goose chase. In turn, Cullen cut a deal. Knowing just how corrupt Sigma upper ranks were, he offered to dedicate space within the future research base to Bioengineering Division. This time, he would open up his full catalogue of genetic code, including his long-hidden files on the Adrenal Rush genome set. "You want to create the perfect soldier? I have the blueprint, ready to go." What did it matter, anyway? No super soldier would be able to stand against what was coming. As far as Cullen was concerned, the top brass could shove it and take with them on their exodus to their stars. Whatever it took, he was getting this done. While Preston brought in more members of Sigma 6 to chase down some of the leads around the world drummed up by the quantum infrasound tracker, now deemed the Salish harmonics, Cullen himself and the Whisperer would not be satisfied with any minor discovery. They were seeking something specific. The Whisperer was convinced that it was somewhere below this ice. "I seek what was hidden from me. I have always known it would be somewhere remote, but the world is vast, and your species' knowledge of it is so limited. So for this, I do owe you, Cullen, a great deal." "So this artifact, it could be the doorway to your world?" "No, the lock that seals the door. My kind, we call it the suppressor." Finally, Cullen was beginning to unlock the inscrutable being and its intentions. Doorway, lock, suppressor, whatever the term, it mattered not to him. His goal was singular: Marilyn, the cure, whatever it took. And so it came to pass, hundreds of feet below the surface. The driver of the Sigma 4 drill called for an immediate halt. The drill head pierced through what seemed to be a hollow cavern within the ice. Cullen ordered a special team sent down to finish digging by hand, Julian at the helm. They were equipped with tuning devices that would allow the team to listen to the infrasound of the hidden artifact as they probed the depths. "Careful," Lilla whispered to Julian as the team prepped. Amara, bundled in a heavy winter coat, gripped at Julian's legs. Cullen overheard the couple and couldn't help but eavesdrop. The intimacy between them. Illusion, Cullen. A feeling between two beings is nothing without a greater purpose. That is what made you and your woman the pair you are. These two still have each other. And Amara too. That shut the voice up. Cullen was bothered at the whisper's insinuation, like it understood who he was. Then it might be right. Suddenly, Lilla's eyes caught his own. He looked away, embarrassed at having been caught out like that. Ever since they had arrived in the Arctic, Lilla had kept her distance from Cullen, and though he couldn't be certain of it, he thought that Lilla had instructed her young daughter to do the same. It made him feel like an outcast in his own operation. The fact that Julian seemed oblivious of it only made it worse. "All right, Clive." As if in response to his own paranoid musings, Julian called out to him with exuberance and warmth. "Shall we spelunk?" The rest of the Sigma 6 staff watched as the dig team rappelled down into the darkness of the icy well. Once they were out of sight, the surface team then gathered around a bank of monitors and listened to the increasing volume of the buried artifacts in human quantum choir, like voices drawing them onward, deeper, closer. "The song," Amara marvelled. "It's so pretty." Lilla smiled at her daughter, failing to completely bury her own nerves. "And Daddy's going to see what's making it." Finally, the radio crackled. It was Julian. "Got it in sight, but it's not a cavern, more like a pocket. The artifact's here, biggest one we've ever seen, and it's definitely active." Julian painted a portrait for them. It was an octahedron, 12 feet tall and 6 wide, shaped with shifting plates that constantly moved and morphed into different geometric patterns. Within this protective barrier, a core of energy shone out. The heat generated by that energy melted the ice directly around the object that it hung suspended in the air, cradled within this small pocket of space for centuries. "Lilla," Julian's voice came in through the radio. "It's a miracle. Just wait till Amara gets a look at this." Cullen cut him short. "Return to the surface. No one touches this until I get a look." "Until I do," spoke the Whisperer. When Cullen rappelled down and first beheld it, their thoughts were the same. This is it. This is the lock. Cullen blinked to break his gaze away from the mesmerizing movement of the octahedron. Unlike the other resonating artifacts, this one was not in quantum flux. It was fully present, activated, and performing its only task, sealing this world away from another. "You have done it, Cullen. You have found it. The suppressor. Now, we must destroy it." And so, at the dawn of his team's second year in the North, Sigma Polar was built around the suppressor's pit. Their drills moved through the frozen ground, tireless, hollowing out a burrow that Sigma 6 filled with billions in high-end equipment, a residential wing, bioengineering labs, and beneath the artifact chamber, a reactor system that kept them all alive in this inhospitable land. Not the suppressor, not the lock, he kept his true name to himself. So Cullen told his team to call it the Key. The primary goal of our work here at Sigma Polar is to ensure that one day we figure out what kind of door it opens. He found the nuance that lined up their findings so far with a false story of hope. The material of the key matches that of the Salish object, and the other quantum objects. Not like the piece we uncovered in the Amazon, yet the key itself is not in quantum flux. Why is that? "This isn't just a fragment," Dr. Fletcher mused. "It's a preserved active system." Exactly. Cullen tossed the ever-curious Fletcher a bone. "I believe that it was protected and hidden away for a reason, for us to find it and use it. Simply put, the key was a quantum resonator. All that was needed now was an amplification of its dormant energy. From there, Cullen theorized that a portal to another world would open. The key currently seems to exist in a state of equilibrium, conserving its energy, so let's give it a boost, and see if it unlocks our doorway to the future." Little did his team know, but the suppressor was already fully operational and functioning as designed. The Whisperer assured him of that. Cullen's supercharge was not going to be a boost, by the destructive force that would finally end the suppressor's centuries as guardian of the Earth. First, they went nuclear. Within the reactor directly beneath the artifact chamber, Cullen built an emitter to channel concentrated energy into the suppressor. They ran it until the heat levels rose dangerously high and the ice walls of the pit began to melt. Julian had to pull Cullen off the controls. "What the hell are you doing, Doc?" Cullen pushed away his disappointment. "Sorry, I thought... Remember, it's not just you down here." Julian left it unspoken. My family, my daughter. Cullen reminded himself that he needed to move carefully now. He was close. He couldn't lose control now. Each attempt would cost him a year. At least, patience was required. For the next test, Cullen took precautions. An insulated box of amplifiers was built around the suppressor. With the flick of a switch, Cullen blasted it with sonic waves at the highest pressure possible. The team couldn't hear the contained sound, but they felt it, shaking the ice around them. Julian gave Cullen a look, and he shut it down. Lilla checked the system. Nothing. No reaction at all. They moved onto kinetic energy, pummeling the suppressor with a chimera built from spare parts of a few Sigma drills and jet engines. Nothing. Thermal then. With Cullen's orders, millions in funding went into motion. Preston Swift kept it coming, but it was clear the top brass wouldn't tolerate this much for much longer. They're remembering their previous opinion of me. A bad investment. Tell me what it's made of. You must know something. You believe I would hold that back? On the edge of everything I've spent centuries seeking? The fury of the Whisperer shook him. This was not made by my kind, but another. Cullen walked the empty halls of the bioengineering division after midnight. He entered the cryo chamber, all tanks empty, for future use, all except for one. Cullen approached it and laid his hand against the cold glass. The face of his wife, eyes closed at peace, not alive, not dead, awaiting. Behind him, the doors opened. Julian rushed inside. This thermal test is too far, Doc. You know it. The only thing we might find out is how much stress this facility can take. So we give up? You think we'll stumble across another artifact like this ever again? Is it worth our lives? Cullen spun on Julian in anger. Isn't that what we're fighting for? Isn't that the purpose of all of this unity and hope? Do people truly believe we can earn our future without sacrifice? How heavy must our sacrifice be? Both of us. We've given much to this fight. My family, Lilla and I have taken away any chance that Amara might have of normal life. She's no normal girl, neither are her parents. Julian couldn't argue, and Cullen knew it. The older Amara got, the more curious and impetuous she became. It was a regular occurrence to find her holed away in some forbidden wing of the facility, taking apart a robot to see how it worked, or leading Major Barclay on a chase to track her down. No, she's not. Perhaps none of us were ever destined for a normal life. Julian looked between Cullen and the frozen Marilyn, pained with sympathy. But what if we deserved the chance for some happiness of our own? Let's say we gave it our best shot here. You can focus on Marilyn. If anyone could save her, and the other one's hit by that damn bug, it's you. Lilla will help, and I'll be there, and we leave saving the Earth to those brainiacs building the Exodus Armada. Julian. Cullen stepped up to his friend, eye to eye. I hired you for your gun, not your ideas. You want to go? Go. But I'm not leaving this place until I've done it. For a moment, Cullen thought all that coiled violence within Julian might finally explode. But Julian turned and walked away. You know I'm right. The door slammed behind him. He is. Cullen couldn't deny the truth. Whatever's holding the suppressor together, we don't have the power it takes. Not on this planet. The Whisperer held silent. Perhaps it had given up on him too. But then he heard another voice in his head, from days gone. From a better time, sunset on a hill, overlooking the bay, moments before he kissed the woman he loved. Cullen gazed back down upon Marilyn and listened to the past. So tell me, What makes our magnetic field so special? The idea arrived fully formed, a vision, the answer, like destiny, like a prophecy fulfilled. In that singular moment, Project Stormgate was born. Well, so I think of all the chapters, this one is probably the most fluffy. We did get some, like, in terms of story wise, I mean, so like the story itself, not much happened here really. Lots of attempts to crack the suppressor, the key, but mostly the story didn't get driven here really. It's more just adding some fluff and some context to the world building. It's very clear that we're getting hints at the third race. The imagery of angels is pretty. It's very on the nose, but I suspect we kind of have more of a kind of Warcraft type vibe, and there's lots of analogs with Warcraft here. Cullen, whilst he's very much like Medivh, he's also a lot like Arthas. I mean, going to the Arctic, and like sacrificing his people for something that he loves is a very Arthas type storyline. Whether or not Cullen is going to become corrupted and become an evil demon on the side of the Infernals, it remains to be seen. I know that is before these chapters being released, that was a bit of a theory that was going around. I could see it going that way. Equally, I still think that Marilyn. It's not quite clear if Marilyn is a catalyst that was kind of placed for him to go a bit crazy, or if Marilyn is also one of these additional races. What I think the third race is going to be is the Infernal Host seems to be they seem to be alien races, and from what I understand, they're a collection of alien races, a bit like the Burning Legion from Warcraft, and they have inspired from the past that because they look demonic, they've inspired the fairy tales and folklore of the Earth's vision of what demons and devils can be. And similarly, though I don't know this to be true yet, but the angels probably are a similar vein. They're probably some sort of alien race that they're a bit more angelic. They have this kind of their song gets associated with what humans see as angelic choir, and similarly they could have inspired angels on the earth, but it remains to be seen. It's interesting. I imagine in the final chapter we're going to find out, or I don't know if we'll find out what the third race is going to be, but we have hints at it now, which is quite exciting. But yeah, it's very clear now that we're leading up to that point where they open the storm gates and the Infernals flood into the earth. Now, will the angels turn up at the same time? Well, you'll have to tune in next time to find out. I had a lot of fun doing this again, and please, if you enjoyed it, pop me a like, pop me a subscribe, pop me a comment down below, give me some feedback, all of that good stuff. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that you have watched and are having a good time as well. So thank you so much. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you next time.